now?
Let's try this again. We are fully live now with the audio turned on. See? Yes, I'm learning.
Awesome.
I'm learning.
I just wanted to say we're chatting about it a bit before we went live just now, but I really love what you're doing with the stream. I was talking about it with Al, so we were listening for the first hour, and it was like the first time I felt like I actually understood what's going on this week in the DAO space. And I feel overwhelmed so much with everything happening, but I really love the stream, so it's a great format, and really stoked that you're having us on again, but in this new kind of format. So thanks.
Of course.
Yeah, so like just to kind of catch you up, I mean, you know, we've been on your streams before, and we've chatted about like the initial proposal piece, Hedgey for treasury management. And we saw a lot of like really good insights from that first run. Some of them were like, you know, really positive for creating like a larger program, which is what the this most recent proposal has been, which is 100 money. And then there was a lot of just like really good feedback that's led us to kind of create the next iteration of our product, which is the treasury pools that we're launching. So kind of to give you a big overview of it, you know, the y.at team knows like if you're a DAO and you're writing these calls, you have to use a multi-sig, which is painful if you have to do like management of like a lot of tiny little things with any DeFi product. And then on the other side, if you're buying these calls, you're having to buy like very fixed numbers. So there's a lot of like friction to writing them, to managing them, and then a lot of limitations to how you can interact with them. So we took that feedback, kind of went back, and what we'll be doing for this next kind of iteration of the y.at calls, and be like featuring you with a very short group of other projects, we're going to be launching treasury pools. It's a very simple way for the DAO, the y.at DAO, to launch any amount of money, whether it's 10 or 20 or 30 or 100 money, at one, you know, strike price, premium percentage, like basically one big call that people then can then go into and buy chunks of. Now that might sound like what's like dorky product, like front of the head stuff, but the goal here is to simplify the process for the DAO, make it very easy to generate the stable coin premiums we talk about, you know, like whether it's 10 or 20% stable coin you build. And then make it super awesome for the community to come in and participate in buying those at any size. So we're basically taking like that core idea and simplifying it better. And we look forward to having you in kind of like the premier launch of this as we go live. I think it's going to be great. You all have always been awesome partners for us. And I think it's going to be fun to kick this off with you. That's my ramble.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm really excited because it's actually, there's a few people I know in the audience. So Dosh is here, Solar I think is live here as well. So we got a few folks that have really been behind the Hedgey partnership going back, I think, to the genesis here. And I'm sharing on screen right now the latest proposal here. And so this is for 100 honey. For people who maybe this is their first time hearing about this treasury diversification, in the simplest terms possible, so one hive is allocated 100 honey, and then what is Hedgey going to help us do with that?
Yeah, I'll let Alex talk to the message from lurking over my shoulder here.
How's it going?
Former treasury manager for y.at.
So I'm a lurker. Anyways, yeah. So what we're going to do is we've got a Gnosis safe set up with myself and a few other people from the y.at DAO. The 100 HMY is going to go in there, and we'll be utilizing the pools to set up, you know, a large pool that people can buy calls in for. And I think one of the things that, you know, I'll be working with the DAO and the sort of treasury swarm, if you will, to set up is kind of gauging, which we did a bit of research for the smaller proposal on where we thought made the most sense in terms of the strike price and all the particulars of the calls that we are putting out. And so we'll do a little bit of research on the front end to kind of gauge that demand and put together a plan that's transparent and everyone can kind of visually see. And then we'll use the multi-sig to set those up using Hedgey, you know, and the application that will be sort of a Gnosis Vault safe app.
And to pull that into perspective a bit, like if you're totally new, like what the fuck our call options and why does One Hive need these and why do I want them. The idea is that, treasuries can't be built on just their native token. It's more volatile. It doesn't give you that war chest if we go into a bear market. It doesn't give you a big roadmap where you're stable to grow over like 3 years, right? The way you do that is by converting these stable coin or, native tokens, in this case Honey, to a stable coin. Now, you could do that through selling them, OTC, market selling, but there's limitations to that. And there's just a negative connotation to doing that in any kind of volume. So what these calls do is it lets the treasury generate 12% minimum stablecoin yield, while also letting the community participate in these calls, which are basically just ways to go bullish, hyper bullish on Honey in the future, in a way that doesn't have a negative price impact, and it's basically using the benefits of a call option to go long on Honey in a way that helps the treasury.
Right, and so the end goal for this next batch of 100 HNY is really to, to generate some yield off of HNY tokens. I don't think that the point isn't to price gouge people; it's to responsibly generate some stablecoin yield, but also to let people, benefit to the upside appreciation of HNY and giving the DAO that additional diversification, generating, hopefully lots of XDAI that'll be used for development costs or Gnosis or whatever for everything else that you can pay then in XDAI and allocate from the gardens and from the treasury DAO or from the DAO contract XDAI instead of giving people HNY that they have to dump. Yeah. So none of the HNY is being used for any payments or anything like that. It's all specifically for the DAO to be used to generate XDAI diversification.
Yeah, I think this is when I'm thinking about sort of even the team, some of which I think are on the stream right now. I know Miguel is here. He's the audio wizard helping us to scale up our content production. And, the ideal outcome is that you have the stable coins, I think, to offer as compensation. And then Honey is something that's, a special edition, or you can have on vesting and you're not, right, having to necessarily compensate. And because it does, right, it has this sort of constant sell pressure, and being able to relieve that through options is just really cool. And I think
if you're involved in a project, and you're compensating the token, you obviously are very bullish on the project, right? But then there's this guilt and these things that come up with if you transition these to something you can use in your life, it's a lot of weight, there's so many factors involved. But I think generating some amount of stable coin as like you say, to kind of blend in is a way to just create more opportunity and more long-term positions for people while also compensating.
Yeah, I mean, turning to the audience, if there's anybody who's listening here who has thoughts about this, what would you think about, so what do you think about a DAO like One Hive building stable coins, and for contributors that we sort of then prioritize that, or would you prefer to be paid in Honey? Everybody's got a different perspective on this, and weighing in. If you got any comments on this, folks in the audience, feel free to add a comment or a question in the chat. And we'll continue to chat a bit here on specific on Hedgey, but at the end we want to have some space for you to ask questions and to answer them.
I love that. Because I would add that I do think people will want to take time as well. That, there's no, we're all in this because we're bullish on the future of the projects. And it's why these call options exist, because being bullish on the future of Honey is kind of what call options are built for. Yep. So, I wouldn't say as a replacement, but more of a supplement, an extra tool. Diversification, which is the dorky treasury stuff.
Yeah. Well, and does this, I know, so Alex, you talked previously too about trying to make this a rolling activity that we're involved in. So how do we make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, and we'll see how this next 100 batch of 100 goes out. I don't think that the plan is to try and sell everything, within the first hour. That might help. That might happen. But really, the goal is to kind of have a rolling amount of HNY that we're using to diversify. At the end of the day, I think I put in the proposal, our goal is really to generate some stablecoin yield, but also I think we want to convert, 100, 150K worth of XDAI by the end of the year. by the end of next year. So I think this has like a ongoing thing where like every couple of months, we put out like some calls that are 3-month dated, and as some of them expire, as some of them are exercised, we're requesting like a top up from the DAO of like another 10 honey or another 20 honey to then put that and roll that out for another 3 months, which is then kind of just like this constant thing where there's enough liquidity in the market for people whenever they want, and it's sort of just like an ongoing process. That's there's just calls kind of going out each month with like a top up every time something every time some of them get exercised, so that it's really just like it's not a one-time deal. This is like just do this over and over again, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, it's interesting when I'm covering some of the news specifically on Shapeshift, and other DAOs are doing the same thing. But one of the proposals recently passed was the creation of a treasury management committee, and just sort of election of individuals that then have a little more latitude to manage a certain percentage of the treasury itself. And I think that it's something that maybe one Hive, every DAO's got to choose the right path for themselves. But obviously, in this is an example where having some people who are being compensated to do this consistently and with a certain degree of autonomy and decision making is an interesting thing, because market conditions change quickly, right? And you need to adapt.
You want to be able to adapt and have people that can, even if it's like 4 people in a multi-sig, they can say, all right, well, let's change the strategy, in an hour or even a couple of days, people can, get together and change it.
That's ultimately what we're building towards as well. Like I think with One Hive, we just have a relationship where we want to discuss ideas and try something beneficial, but at the end of the day, we are trying to build something that is totally a permissionless way to interact with the product that DAOs and more sophisticated users can kind of use for unique strategies. Yeah, for sure.
When I see comments from what is it here? Press for Best and NOX Billy. Yeah, it's I think the right answer is blending, right? I think that was the word that Lindsay used. I think it makes a lot of sense, and being able to offer both kind of covers our bases, right? And on one hand, it's certainly the case that if like Billy said, if you go for the stable coins and then honey pumps, you're definitely going to be living with regret. But the opposite is also true, right? So having options is good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because it's almost like an LP provider in that sense, where if you're providing liquidity in the coin pumps, and you're like, oh, I missed out on this big opportunity. And you've been in space long enough where we know that's a big interest for a lot of people. So I think at the end of the day, the goal is primarily to create the reserve for the DAO to then deploy in the way that makes sense for the community and the DAO. But at the end of the day, having a bankroll to be able to pay bills, contract, whatever it is, no matter market conditions, and having that reserve is kind of a core part of any treasury, and one that doesn't matter how you want to use them, but I think building up that stablecoin reserve is the goal.
Right. Well, and it's certainly obviously if HMI pumps, it's great. It's also great for the community buying those calls when it pumps to have those and have that leverage exposure where they feel more benefited. At the downside, if they're 100% exposed to HMY, you get all the ups and you get all the downs. But when you have, once we've achieved some level of diversification, you have sort of a stablecoin treasury chest. You can start implementing some more of the stuff that I've talked about in some papers, where it's like, well, we can do lending, stuff on Agave with that XDAI, or lend to the community through the DAO, or do sort of different strategies with that XDAI, whether it's paying people or actually using that to earn additional yields and stuff that might not be possible with HMI.
Snowing, sorry. We're in New York, by the way. You guys in New York, come visit us. It just started snowing for the first time.
Wow.
I love it. It's a
Anyways, so I think once you get it, once you get a more diversified treasury, you can play with more tools. It opens up more possibilities, whereas if you're all just one thing, you don't really have many tools at the end. Great point.
Yeah, I'm going to actually say, too, I'm afraid the tab is sort of overloading my system right now, but everybody should go to Hedgey. Go to Hedgey's, go to the Medium. There's a lot of really great articles there. And yeah, Alex wrote, I think, is it a 2 or 3-part series on treasury management for DAOs? It was really edifying. It's a great read. Reads.
Yeah. Medium.com/yeah, for sure. Check it out. That's great. Yeah. So, I mean, apart from that, like if you want to pull in perspective, like there's that. There's also some things we're building, like our next kind of generation of tools, which I mean, I can talk about like lightly, but I think one of the things that building belly to belly like this is hearing feedback on things that your products do and ways to make them better, but also like products or jobs that, people still need to be done that we're not doing yet. So we have a lot of feedback for things like OTC deals with like certain elements of like options. So OTC deals with like vesting periods and time locks and ways to do I mean, I could ramble like on like 10 different things right now, but we're in the beginning of a very interesting build cycle where we're starting to build out the ability to interact with whether it's a token sale between two people with like certain parameters that are like in our options products, like vesting, minimum prices, yada yada. Combining token sales with calls and puts, which is a very interesting concept. Or claimable calls, like basically stock options, giving people and early contributors the right to your token at certain milestones. There's a lot of really early ideas there that we're going to be building out. To pull this into perspective, one of the things that was most interesting to us when we started was the idea of gardens and building tooling for DAOs and a way to kind of build your ecosystem. And I think one of the areas that we're hiring into right now, we're really interested in exploring in a more like tangible way, is actually starting to build these products into gardens. Because we see there's a lot of like, DAO tooling, build your DAO here or launch a DAO here. And we think to do that, you're going to need a host of tools. We know we're just one of them, but I think one of the things we're really excited about is not just building up public calls, but all these products into kind of the gardens ecosystem and trying to transition from just one hive using our products to the ecosystem building on gardens.
So you think in like a sort of an API where like DAO, so either DAO treasury management committees or like individual members can essentially set up call options from within the Gardens UI. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right.
I think so, yeah. I mean, we'll explore that a bit more, whether it's like, an API or it's a direct smart contract integration that has like an interface, yeah, I think there's a bit to be explored through that, especially as we build more tooling out. So we're already sort of like in, I would say, mid-level build of like 3 or 4 new products beyond the tools that we're hoping to start testing and getting early feedback on. Likely from, or definitely from the One Hive group, just to really see like this also makes sense in addition for the DAO and for the community. But I think just building sort of like a suite of tools and whether that's API integrated, I think we'll figure out exactly how that integration feels to make it the most seamless and scalable.
Yeah. Apart from just rambling on a product, I'm really interested in seeing like the life cycle of launching a DAO. Because like I feel like every time I see
a fresh DAO.
Yeah, I feel like every time I see a DAO, for some reason I'm like the last motherfucker to see it. Like I'm always like seeing it live and has existed for a week with its now robust community of people. So I would love to see, like the gardens, like that life cycle. If somebody wanted to start a DAO, and how they organize that, and how they organize it. Like, because I feel like. This is going on some earlier ideas we've had asked just how you build a community. But I feel like One Hive had this community. You've already launched, Agave, and you're launching. I was listening to your launch, the airdrop. So you have this capacity to launch new communities from your existing. So I'm really interested to see with One Hive how you start to let your large community start to splinter into DAOs and make gardens like too. Like thinking through our process of like, well, where do we come in? How do they use us? And where do we talk about the life cycle? And I think it's the one thing I think One Hive is like the opportunity and something I want to see from you all is like starting a fucking DAO with gardens and people in the community that want to explore like one of these, like not like we're going to build products of the future DAO, but like a group of people with common interests in a shared bank account, basically.
Yeah.
I want to see that come out of y.at because you have the community, you have the infrastructure of gardens. So like, I don't know. I want to see you start building some DAOs and start getting involved.
Yeah, you know, it seems to me that like the tools that you're building, like the tools that Hedgey.Finance is building, are like they enable you to think about treasury management as a early principle of like tokenomics rather than just issuance policy and like immediate use case. I don't know. I mean, thinking about how you can diversify the treasury starting right out of the gates and not a year or 6 months after you've existed. You know, I mean, there's obviously timing for everything, but I think the tools help you think more clearly about what's possible. And figuring out ways to build that utility into gardens. I think Dash here, it looks like a treasury module of some kind would be really cool. Yeah.
As you're creating structure for kind of like initial token distribution to the community or whatever, you can set up, you know, because traditional, you have like distribution mechanisms like an airdrop or a claim
bonding
function.
mechanism.
Yeah, bonding mechanism. You have like the ability to have an allocation for OTC or sales or whatever. And then, you know, Hedgey, like the core of our product is just how your tokens exist in the future, right? It's all just, you know, future looking options. So I think being able to combine all of those as you think about the structure of your token, like what's allocated for right now, for like distribution, what's allocated for like building up an initial cash treasury for sales, and what's allocated for like long-term treasury management through options. And then you have all your other products as well. I think that would be fun to explore with like an early product. On the garden, on the y.at.
100%. Well, we have, I guess, a little less than 10 minutes remaining here till the bottom of the hour. So folks that are with us on stream, if you got any questions for the Hedgey team here, or just about options or about OneHive, about the proposal that recently passed, anything at all, feel free to drop it in the chat. And we can take those questions here. I'm going to go down the list real quick and welcome folks that I think have recently joined us here. Thanks for coming on, folks, this morning. Looks like new folks would be Bobby VL. Dash is with us now. Go Lewis. Greg the Slayer. I'm going to put my glasses on here so I don't butcher any worse than I need to. Yeah. Okay. Caxi PS. Let's see here. We got Luis Gonzaga. Hello. Non Shannon. Paul is with us now. How's it going, man? We had, let's see here. Spigot Rap Claire. I think I got that one. Turner 1337, Venetia, and Virgo Praz. Welcome to everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Let me check the chat here and see if we got any questions. Again, a shout out to what's that?
Great comments. Thanks, Josh. Look, I think we've rambled enough, but I just want to say, I really, really love what we're putting together here. I love the stream before we got on, an hour and a half. It's a great stream to put together. So I look forward to being on more of these in the future, and also just starting to listen to this now on the regular, so I can drop buzzwords and sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Well, if we don't have any questions right now, again, if you drop them here, we'd be happy to answer them sort of offline if you got questions about Hedgey. But let's see here. We got some coming in here.
Yeah, cool. More comments from Josh. Yeah, I agree, Josh. I think yeah, we'll have to explore that idea a lot. Where it fits in the life cycle, I think that's absolutely right. Like, it'd be fun to see that, and it's an area that honestly we haven't really thought much of. We're so used now to the existing processes, but being it from the get-go, I think would be really cool.
Yeah, finding ways to build in the conviction voting is pretty neat. We had I don't know, there was this osmosis funding. I don't know if you guys, this was a couple of the devs that have been on OneHive seeds for since the early days. They recently combined essentially superfluid and conviction voting. So the idea is, if you have a pool of resources, there's could be like you have the treasury, and then you're streaming resources to different projects, but then how like the quantity of resources is determined by a conviction voting embedded within that system. So it's kind of like a coordinate in some ways, where you use conviction voting as like a mechanism to direct flows of resources. It was an interesting idea. They're working on building that, and I feel like there's all these different ways that we can sort of think about diversification and treasury management. Yeah.
The idea is like all of these like big thoughts and like how you make them like specifically understand and interact with. Like, because I feel like as we start to build out these complex toolings, like it's going to be hard to package them in a way, like, you know, as we talk about this right here, my brain